From brutally abused child prodigy to the most famous human who ever lived, discover the heartbreaking story of Michael Jackson's transformation from innocent boy to tragic king of pop. This is the ultimate tale of genius, fame, and the devastating price of global stardom that destroyed the child who created the magic. Pure emotional devastation awaits.
Biographical, Michael Jackson, the boy who became the king in the suffocating industrial smog of Gary, Indiana, where steel mills belched toxic clouds that turned the sky perpetually gray and dreams seemed as distant as the stars hidden behind the pollution. A 5-year-old boy with eyes that held both ancient wisdom and heartbreaking innocence stood on a makeshift stage in his family's living room, singing with a voice so pure and powerful that neighbors would stop their conversations mid-sentence to listen through paper-thin walls. This wasn't just any talented child from America's forgotten Rust Belt. This was Michael Joseph Jackson, whose extraordinary gift would become both his salvation and his curse, transforming him from an abused child prodigy into the most famous human being who ever walked the earth, while the very fame that elevated him to godlike status would ultimately consume the innocent soul that had made him magical in the first place. Born on August 29, 1958, into a world where hope was rationed and poverty was a daily companion, Michael entered the Jackson household as the 8th of 10 children, arriving into a chaos of siblings competing for attention, space, and the basic necessities of life. The family's cramped 2-bedroom house at 2300 Jackson Street was a pressure cooker of unfulfilled dreams, financial desperation, and musical talent that seemed to seep from the very walls like some kind of divine gift wrapped in human struggle. His father, Joseph Walter Jackson, was a man whose own broken dreams had calcified into a bitter determination to live vicariously through his children's success. Joe had once harbored his own musical ambitions, playing guitar in a local R&B band called the Falcons, but when those dreams were crushed by the harsh realities of racism, poverty, and limited opportunities in 1950s America, his disappointment transformed into a toxic mixture of ambition and abuse that would shape his children's lives in ways both miraculous and devastating. Joe's hands, which had once lovingly strummed guitar strings, became instruments of terror for his sons, wielding belts, switches, and psychological warfare with the same precision he demanded from their musical performances. Catherine Esther Scrooge Jackson, Michael's mother, was a woman caught between her deep love for her children and her inability to protect them from her husband's increasingly violent pursuit of their musical education. A devout Jehovah's Witness with a voice like an angel and a heart full of gospel music, Catherine had married Joe with dreams of a stable, loving family, only to watch helplessly as their home became a boot camp where childhood was systematically sacrificed on the altar of entertainment success. Her internal conflict, wanting to stop the abuse while fearing the destruction of the family's only path out of poverty, created an atmosphere of psychological complexity that would influence Michael's relationship with love, trust, and authority for the rest of his life. The Jackson children learned early that survival in their household required both extraordinary talent and the ability to endure physical and emotional pain without complaint. Tito discovered his father's guitar hidden in a closet and secretly taught himself to play, only to face a brutal beating when Joe discovered the broken string that revealed his transgression. But when Joe heard Tito play, something clicked in his calculating mind. His children possessed the musical gifts that he had been denied, and he would ensure they achieved the success that had eluded him, regardless of the cost to their childhood, their happiness, or their psychological well-being. Young Michael's first memories weren't of toys, games, or carefree play, but of standing in front of the family mirror, practicing facial expressions and dance moves while his brothers rehearsed behind him. His earliest understanding of love was conditional, tied to his ability to hit the right notes, execute the perfect spin, and charm audiences with a smile that masked the fear and confusion of a child forced to be an adult before he had even learned to be a child. The living room became a rehearsal studio where mistakes were punished with violence and perfection was rewarded with the temporary absence of abuse. The formation of the Jackson 5 in 1964 emerged from Joe's systematic exploitation of his son's natural talents, combined with his shrewd understanding of the entertainment industry's appetite for novelty acts. He had observed how groups like the Temptations and the Four Tops dominated the charts, and he was determined to create a younger, more marketable version featuring his own children. The group's early lineup, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Little Michael, represented different aspects of the Jackson family's musical DNA. But it was Michael's extraordinary voice and natural stage presence that immediately set him apart as something special. At 6 years old, Michael possessed vocal abilities that defied explanation. He could sing with the emotional depth of an adult while maintaining the innocent charm that made audiences fall in love with him instantly. His voice could soar through complex melodies with technical precision, then drop to intimate whispers that made listeners feel like he was singing directly to their souls. But more than just vocal talent, Michael had an innate understanding of performance that seemed almost supernatural. He knew exactly when to pause for dramatic effect, when to extend a note for maximum emotional impact, and how to connect with audiences in ways that seasoned professionals spent decades trying to master. The group's early performances at local talent shows, strip clubs, and amateur nights across the Midwest became the stuff of legend, with stories of audiences stopping mid-conversation to stare in amazement at the tiny boy who sang and danced like he had been born on stage. Michael's performances during this period weren't just entertaining, they were transcendent experiences that seemed to tap into something primal and universal about the human capacity for joy, sadness, and wonder. Audience members would later describe feeling like they had witnessed something miraculous, as if this small child was channeling emotions and experiences far beyond his years. But the success came with a price that would haunt Michael for the rest of his life. While other children his age were learning to read, playing with toys, and forming friendships, Michael was memorizing complex choreography, perfecting his stage presence, and learning to navigate the adult world of entertainment industry politics. His education became sporadic and inconsistent, with tutors hired to provide the minimum schooling required by law while the family's focus remained laser-focused on their musical career. Michael's childhood friends were his brothers and the occasional children of other entertainers, relationships that were inevitably complicated by professional competition and the abnormal circumstances of their shared experiences. The discovery by Berry Gordy and Diana Ross in 1968 should have been the ultimate fairy tale moment, a poor family from Gary, Indiana, getting their big break at the most successful record label in America. The story of their audition at Motown became part of music industry folklore, little Michael captivating everyone in the room with his performance of James Brown's I Got the Feeling, his tiny body moving with the precision and soul of a seasoned performer while his voice filled the studio with a power and emotional resonance that seemed impossible coming from someone so small. But the transition to Motown also marked the beginning of Michael's complete separation from anything resembling a normal childhood. The family moved to Los Angeles, where the boys were enrolled in professional studios, voice coaches, and choreographers who refined their natural talents into a commercial phenomenon designed to dominate the charts. Michael's days became 12-hour marathons of recording sessions, rehearsals, publicity appearances, and performances that left little time for rest, play, or the kind of personal development that children need to become healthy adults. Diana Ross became both a mentor and a surrogate mother figure for Michael during this crucial period, recognizing not just his extraordinary talent but his deep need for nurturing and protection that was absent from his own family dynamic. Ross would later describe watching Michael transform from a shy, sweet child into a confident performer, but she also witnessed the psychological cost of fame on someone so young. Her relationship with Michael during the early Motown years provided him with his first experience of unconditional love and support, creating a template for the kind of relationships he would seek for the rest of his life. The success of I Want You Back, ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There transformed the Jackson 5 from promising newcomers into global superstars, but it also intensified the pressure on Michael to maintain his position as the group's undisputed star. Each hit single brought higher expectations, longer tours, and more demanding schedules that consumed every aspect of his young life. The other brothers, while talented, gradually accepted their roles as supporting players to Michael's obvious star power, creating family dynamics that would complicate their relationships for decades to come. Behind the scenes, Michael was absorbing everything he could about the music industry, studying how Motown's hit-making machine operated, learning about production techniques, and developing his understanding of what made certain songs connect with audiences while others failed. His natural curiosity and intelligence, combined with his unique position at the center of one of the most successful entertainment operations in the world, gave him an education in music and business that money couldn't buy. But this education came at the expense of normal social development, leaving him with sophisticated professional knowledge while remaining emotionally and psychologically stunted in many ways. The physical and psychological abuse from Joe Jackson continued throughout the Motown years, even as the family achieved unprecedented success and financial security. Joe's paranoia about losing control of his son's careers led to even more restrictive and controlling behavior, with Michael bearing the brunt of his father's expectations and anger. The contrast between Michael's public image as a happy, talented child and his private reality of fear, abuse, and isolation created psychological fractures that would influence every aspect of his adult life. The transition to adolescence proved to be one of the most challenging periods of Michael's life, as his voice began to change just as the group's commercial success started to decline. The record-buying public's tastes were shifting toward disco and more adult-oriented R&B, while the Jackson 5's clean-cut image began to seem dated compared to emerging acts with more sophisticated sounds and images. Michael's changing voice forced him to adapt his singing style, but it also triggered deeper questions about his identity and future that he was ill-equipped to handle. The family's departure from Motown to Epic Records in 1975 marked both a business triumph and a personal crisis for Michael. While the move to Epic provided greater creative control and financial rewards, it also intensified the pressure on Michael to prove himself as an adult artist capable of transcending his child star image. The legal battles with Motown over the Jackson 5 name and back catalog created additional stress while reinforcing Michael's growing understanding that the entertainment industry was a business where personal relationships were secondary to profit and control. Off the Wall in 1979 represented Michael's emergence as a serious adult artist, but it also revealed the deep psychological complexities that fame and abuse had created within him. Working with producer Quincy Jones, Michael crafted an album that perfectly balanced his roots in soul and R&B with contemporary disco and pop influences, creating a sound that was both commercially successful and artistically sophisticated. Songs like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You showcased his evolved vocal techniques, while the album's themes of liberation, joy, and romantic desire reflected his attempts to claim an adult identity separate from his family's control. But even as Off the Wall established Michael as a solo artist capable of achieving success independent of the Jackson 5, it also revealed the profound isolation and emotional confusion that characterized his private life. The album's celebration of dance, romance, and physical pleasure contrasted sharply with Michael's actual experience of relationships, which remained complicated by his fame, his psychological damage from childhood abuse, and his growing discomfort with his changing appearance and sexuality. The creation of Thriller between 1980 and 1982 became Michael's obsessive pursuit of perfection, with every song crafted and refined through countless sessions until it met his impossibly high standards. Working again with Quincy Jones, Michael assembled a collection of tracks that seamlessly blended pop, rock, R&B, and funk while showcasing his evolved vocal abilities and sophisticated understanding of what made songs both commercially successful and artistically enduring. The album's 9 tracks represented different facets of Michael's artistic personality while maintaining a cohesive vision that elevated the entire work beyond the sum of its individual parts. Billie Jean, the album's centerpiece, emerged from Michael's growing paranoia about false paternity claims and his complicated relationship with female fans who projected romantic fantasies onto him. The song's hypnotic bass line, combined with Michael's vocals that perfectly captured both vulnerability and defiance, created a track that was simultaneously personal confession and universal dance anthem. The song's themes of denial, suspicion, and the price of fame reflected Michael's growing awareness that his celebrity status made him a target for exploitation while providing him with a creative outlet for expressing his psychological conflicts. The Thriller's music video revolutionized the medium while showcasing Michael's incredible dancing abilities and his sophisticated understanding of visual storytelling. The 14-minute short film, directed by John Landis, combined elements of horror movies, Broadway musicals, and concert performance to create something entirely new in popular entertainment. Michael's transformation from romantic boyfriend to werewolf to zombie leader provided metaphors for his own psychological transformations, while his elaborate choreography established new standards for what dance could achieve in popular music. The Moonwalk, first performed on television during the Motown 25 special in 1983, became the physical manifestation of Michael's artistic genius and his ability to create moments of pure magic that transcended entertainment to become cultural phenomena. The dance move, which Michael had adapted and perfected from techniques learned from street dancers and mime artists, created the illusion of effortless backward gliding while requiring extraordinary physical control and practice. The audience's reaction to the moonwalk, a spontaneous eruption of amazement and applause, captured the way Michael could create shared experiences of wonder that brought people together across all boundaries of race, age, and culture. But the unprecedented success of Thriller, which eventually sold over 100 million copies worldwide and spent 37 weeks at #1 on the Billboard charts, also intensified the isolation and pressure that were consuming Michael's private life. Every aspect of his existence became public property, from his romantic relationships to his changing appearance to his increasingly eccentric lifestyle choices. The ranch he purchased in 1987 and transformed into Neverland became both a refuge from the world's scrutiny and a symbol of his inability to have normal adult relationships and experiences. Neverland Ranch represented Michael's attempt to create a physical manifestation of the childhood he had never been allowed to experience, complete with amusement park rides, a zoo filled with exotic animals, and constant entertainment designed to recreate the wonder and innocence that fame had stolen from him. But Neverland also became a source of controversy and suspicion, as Michael's relationships with the children who visited the ranch raised questions about his motivations and psychological state that would follow him for the rest of his life. His humanitarian efforts during the 1980s demonstrated Michael's genuine desire to use his fame and wealth for positive change, even as they revealed his deep need for validation and love that professional success couldn't provide. We Are the World, which he co-wrote with Lionel Richie and performed with dozens of other major recording artists, raised over $63 million for African famine relief while showcasing Michael's ability to unite the entertainment industry around important causes. His support for various children's charities, including substantial donations to hospitals, schools, and youth programs, reflected both his sincere desire to help vulnerable young people and his complicated relationship with his own lost childhood. The Bad album and tour in 1987 to 1989 pushed Michael's artistic vision and commercial success to even greater heights while revealing the psychological cost of maintaining his position as the world's biggest entertainer. The album's themes of urban grit, personal empowerment, and social consciousness reflected Michael's growing awareness of his responsibility as a cultural icon, while songs like Man in the Mirror and The Way You Make Me Feel showcased his evolved songwriting abilities and his capacity for both introspection and celebration. The Bad tour's elaborate staging, featuring hydraulic stages, spectacular lighting effects, and choreography that required months of intensive rehearsal, set new standards for concert production while generating over $125 million in revenue. Michael's perfectionism during this period reached legendary levels, with reports of dozens of takes for single dance moves, obsessive attention to costume details, and rehearsals that continued until every element met his impossibly high standards. His performances during the tour were described by critics as transcendent experiences that combined athletic precision with spiritual intensity, creating shared moments of joy and wonder that audiences carried with them for years afterward. But the success of Bad also marked the beginning of a darker phase in Michael's public image, as media coverage increasingly focused on his changing appearance, his reclusive lifestyle, and his unconventional behavior. Rumors about plastic surgery, skin bleaching, and his relationships with young boys began to overshadow his artistic achievements, creating a narrative of eccentricity and potential danger that would complicate his legacy for the rest of his life. The 1990s brought new challenges as Michael's personal life became increasingly controversial and his behavior more erratic and difficult to explain or defend. The first allegations of child sexual abuse in 1993, brought by 13-year-old Jordan Chandler and his father Evan, created a media firestorm that threatened to destroy everything Michael had built over his 30-year career. The allegations, which Michael vehemently denied, led to a criminal investigation that was eventually dropped due to lack of evidence, but the $25 million settlement he paid to the Chandler family created public suspicion that would never fully disappear. The impact of the allegations on Michael's psychological state was devastating, transforming him from a confident performer into a paranoid recluse who saw enemies and conspiracies everywhere. His addiction to prescription painkillers, which had begun after a 1984 accident during a Pepsi commercial shoot, intensified as he struggled to cope with the stress and depression that followed the accusations. The combination of chronic pain, psychological trauma, and increasing social isolation created a downward spiral that would influence every aspect of his remaining years. His marriage to Lisa Marie Presley in 1994 was seen by many as a publicity stunt designed to rehabilitate his image and demonstrate his capacity for normal adult relationships. but those close to the couple described a genuine connection between two people who had both experienced the unique pressures and isolation of extreme fame from childhood. Lisa Marie's understanding of what it meant to grow up as entertainment royalty provided Michael with his first adult relationship with someone who truly understood his experience, even as their marriage was complicated by his psychological damage and her own complex relationship with fame and family legacy. The divorce from Lisa Marie in 1996 and his subsequent marriage to Debbie Rowe, a dermatology nurse who had treated his skin condition, reflected Michael's desperate desire for family and normal domestic life, even as his psychological state made such normalcy increasingly impossible. The births of his children, Prince in 1997 and Paris in 1998, provided Michael with his first experience of unconditional love since his own childhood, but also intensified his paranoia about protecting them from the scrutiny and exploitation that had defined his own young life. History, Past, Present and Future, Book I in 1995 marked a darker, more defensive phase in Michael's artistic output, with songs that directly addressed his legal troubles, media persecution, and growing sense of isolation from the world that had once celebrated him. Tracks like Scream, a duet with his sister Janet, and They Don't Care About Us revealed an artist who felt under siege from forces beyond his control, while the album's massive promotional campaign, featuring giant statues of Michael in military uniform, suggested a level of grandiosity and detachment from reality that concerned even his supporters. The final years of Michael's life were marked by financial troubles that seemed impossible given his historic level of success, but which reflected both his extravagant spending habits and the complex web of loans, advances, and business deals that had financed his lifestyle for decades. Neverland Ranch, which had cost tens of millions to build and maintain, became a financial burden rather than a refuge, while his ownership of the Beatles' song catalog, purchased for $47.5 million in 1985, became collateral for loans that threatened his long-term financial security. The child molestation trial in 2005, stemming from allegations by the Arvizo family, represented the culmination of the suspicions and accusations that had followed Michael for over a decade. The 5-month trial, which featured testimony from dozens of witnesses and extensive media coverage, resulted in Michael's acquittal on all charges, but the psychological and financial cost of the proceedings left him physically and emotionally devastated. His appearance during the trial, gaunt, disoriented, and often seeming disconnected from the proceedings, shocked fans who remembered the confident, charismatic performer he had once been. The years following the trial saw Michael's virtual disappearance from public life, as he struggled with prescription drug addiction, financial pressures, and the knowledge that much of the world now viewed him with suspicion rather than admiration. His brief attempt to rebuild his career with the This Is It concert series, planned for London's O2 Arena in 2009, represented both his desperate need for income and his genuine desire to prove that his artistic gifts remained intact despite everything he had endured. The rehearsals for This Is It, which were extensively filmed and later released as a documentary, revealed flashes of the old Michael, his perfectionism, his creative vision, and his ability to inspire the musicians and dancers around him. But they also showed a man whose physical and psychological state was far more fragile than anyone realized, setting the stage for the tragedy that would follow. His death on June 25, 2009, from an overdose of propofol administered by his personal physician Dr. Conrad Murray, shocked the world and created an outpouring of grief unprecedented for any entertainer in history. The circumstances of his death, a desperate attempt to find sleep after years of insomnia caused by prescription drug dependence, revealed the tragic cost of a lifetime spent under impossible pressure while dealing with psychological trauma that was never properly addressed or healed. The investigation into Michael's death revealed the extent of his drug dependence and the negligence of the medical professionals who had enabled his addiction in exchange for access to his fame and money. Dr. Murray's conviction for involuntary manslaughter provided some measure of justice, but it also highlighted the predatory nature of many relationships in Michael's later life, as people who should have protected him instead exploited his vulnerabilities for their own benefit. The legacy Michael Jackson left behind is as complex and contradictory as the man himself, reflecting both his extraordinary artistic achievements and the personal demons that ultimately consumed him. His influence on music, dance, fashion, and popular culture is immeasurable, with virtually every contemporary pop artist citing him as a primary inspiration. His innovations in music videos, concert production, and artistic collaboration changed how entertainment is created, marketed, and consumed, While his commitment to technical excellence and creative innovation set standards that continue to influence performers decades after his death, the ongoing debates about Michael's personal life and the allegations against him continue to complicate his legacy, forcing fans, critics, and historians to grapple with fundamental questions about how to evaluate artistic genius when it exists alongside troubling personal behavior. The 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland, which featured detailed allegations from two men who claimed Michael abused them as children, renewed controversy about his relationship with young boys, while his defenders pointed to his charitable works, his acquittal in court, and the lack of definitive evidence supporting the accusations. His three children, Paris, Prince, and Blanket, now known as By Guy, have grown up in the shadow of their father's fame while trying to establish their own identities and careers separate from his legacy. Their efforts to honor his memory while living normal lives demonstrate both the continuing power of his influence and the ongoing challenges faced by those connected to his extraordinary but troubled existence. Paris, in particular, has become an advocate for mental health awareness and social justice causes, using her platform to address issues that were important to her father while forging her own path in entertainment and activism. The Michael Jackson estate's management of his posthumous career has generated billions in revenue while keeping his music and image relevant for new generations of fans who never experienced his live performances. The continued success of his catalog, combined with tribute shows, documentaries, and biographical projects, proves that his artistic impact transcends the controversies surrounding his personal life. Albums of unreleased material, including Michael, 2010, and Escape, 2014, have provided fans with new music while raising questions about artistic authenticity and the ethics of posthumous releases. The Broadway musical MJ, which premiered in 2022, represents the latest attempt to grapple with Michael's complex legacy while celebrating his artistic achievements. The production, which focuses on his creative process and professional relationships rather than the controversies of his personal life, demonstrates how his story continues to inspire new artistic works while remaining challenging to present without addressing the more troubling aspects of his biography. Today, Michael Jackson remains the most globally recognized entertainer in history, with his influence visible in everything from contemporary pop music and dance styles to fashion trends and social media content. His story serves as both inspiration and cautionary tale about the costs of fame, the price of perfection, and the complex relationship between artistic genius and personal happiness. The boy from Gary, Indiana, who sacrificed his childhood to become the king of pop, ultimately achieved a form of immortality through his art while paying the ultimate price for global fame that few humans could have survived intact. His legacy continues to evolve as each generation discovers his music while grappling with the complicated truth of who he really was behind the glittering glove, the moonwalk, and the myth. The debates about his life and art will likely continue for generations, but what remains undeniable is his extraordinary impact on human culture and his unique ability to create moments of shared joy, wonder, and transcendence that connected people across every boundary of race, nationality, and social class. In the end, perhaps that is how Michael Jackson should be remembered, not just as the king of pop, but as a reminder of music's power to unite humanity in experiences of beauty and emotion that transcend the complexities and controversies of individual human existence.
Michael's story proves that extraordinary talent can both elevate and destroy. From Gary's steel mills to global throne, he showed us that fame's price might be too high for any human soul. Subscribe for more tragic music legends, like if MJ's artistry moved your soul. Share how his music changed your life forever.